Welcome to the news events of Roseville. I am Jim Gibbons. I took these pictures myself while I was working at the Old Doors Theater on Vernon Street and the Rose Theater on Main Street. These two theaters were both early theaters of Roseville, and the Doors being the earlier of the two. This basketball game was taken on the old SP Hotel building grounds between Vernon and Atlantic Street. The basketball boys team was George Stevens, Irving Elliott, Charlie Turner, Guy Van Maren, and Dave Myers. And this man that you see in the black suit was the coach. His name was Mannion. He was also the manual training teacher at school. The game was played between Auburn and Roseville. I don't know who won the game. The laying of the cornerstone was a big event in Roseville, and one of the ladies who was very instrumental in it was Mrs. Cora Woodbridge, who you see there in the white hat, and Dr. Woodbridge was sitting down beside her. The cornerstone was laid by the Grand Lodge of Masons of the state of California in conjunction with the Roseville Lodge. And this is Judge Burnett, who made one of the opening addresses, and he was the Grand Master of the state of California at this particular time. Mrs. Woodbridge was instrumental in getting the high school going. She did a lot of work towards getting interest going and so on. The placing of the copper box in the cornerstone contained papers of the Roseville Register and the Roseville Tribune. Also, coins of the date of 1915 and the names of the teachers and the pupils of the school at that particular time. Rather slow process in letting the cornerstone down there, inasmuch as it had to go in the particular place and it had to be perfectly set at the time. Mr. Masters, the principal, and Judge Burnett shake hands there in the rear. The Roseville Moose Band was quite active in Roseville at this time, and this band was inducted as a group into the Roseville Moose Lodge. They played parades and all such things. The high school and students of 1915, these are taken in front of the old SP Hotel building and the paint shop there on the left. According to modern day standards, that was a very poor building. It certainly wasn't a very fireproof deal. These are the pupils at the time, and you can note that Vernon Street is not paved. You can see the mud puddles. Myron Lackey is on the left there with the white paper. At the dedication of the school in January 1916, the Civil War veterans, Grand Army of the Republic, it was their duty at these particular times to present new flags to the school. And this is what is taking place right here. The boy on the left there, his name is Lawrence Osborne. I don't know whatever happened to Lawrence. And you'll see Mr. Bedell shortly. He was on the high school board of trustees. There he is on the left with the rope in his hand there. The Civil War veterans are holding the flag, which will be raised to the top of the pole. It was a very cold, miserable day this day, foggy and wet. The congregation who gathered on the outside to see the flag raising ceremony eventually gathered and went inside to the auditorium where appropriate speeches were made by trustees and the mayor of the town and so on. One of the outstanding boys there, you see in the white suit, his name is Frank Tropper. He and I were very good friends in German class together. It's a shame that this building had to be torn down like so many others of its kind. It took an era of architecture there that will probably never be replaced or done again. This is the building after the completion in 1916. And that's the cornerstone in place. Now the events coming up of 1919 and 1920 were photographed for the Rose Theater on Main Street. This is a May Day parade starting at Main Street and coming down Lincoln over to Vernon and down to Royer Park. This grammar school band, if my memory is correct, is the first grammar school band that was ever in Roseville. All these youngsters were all high school youngsters. You can see by the flags that we had a brisk north wind blowing. The building in the background is McRae's Hall, which in those days was the hall where dances and shows and plays were put on. This is being taken off the top of a building where the old M.B. Johnson grocery store stood for so many years. This particular scene, you can't take it today because the street's closed. The SP closed this to traffic after the underpass was put through. And the underpass sort of killed this section of the town, and the business district moved over to Vernon Street. There are quite a lot of vintage automobiles in that parade. H.T. Miller's store was down Vernon Street quite a ways, and you can just see on the left there a corner of the old Busby building. Women's Improvement Club float. This street scene here, I believe, is what is now Douglas Street, as they're getting ready to enter into Royer Park. The umbrellas that you see there, it wasn't raining, it was just plain hot, and they were shading themselves. The grammar school youngsters all drilled this for the maypole dancing. Notice the lady in the white there with the brimmed hat. There were many decorated cars in the parade, but these that I took the pictures of were the outstanding decorated cars. Women's Improvement Club car there on the right. Now, as to who the speaker is, I can't tell you because I don't remember, but it must have had something to do with the acceptance of Royer Park, or the beginning of the acceptance of Royer Park. Lieutenant Myron E. Lackey was an aviator in World War I. He purchased this World War I Jenny and did a little barnstorming, taking people up over Roseville for $5 a ride. The gentleman in the rear there, as he goes by here, was Hal Frost. He was an engineer, SP engineer. The field that he took off from was to the right of Riverside Avenue, and the dry creek is on the left side of the picture. It was nothing but a cow pasture. Looping the loop in those days was quite a thing to see. Nowadays, only stunt flyers do those particular things. A man on the wing, I don't know who it was, but it was one of his mechanics. These pictures taken from the air are not as good possibly as they could be due to the fact that I was unable to position my camera so that I could keep it on the level. And if you turn your head just a little bit to the left, you'll straighten it out, and you may be able to recognize some of these places that I'll try and point out to you as the film goes along. This is looking right down on Lincoln Street, and the McRae building there on the lower left, and looking right up Lincoln Street towards the library. Now, these residential district views, this particular one was taken off the water tower at the old SP Roundhouse, looking towards Vernon Street and Lincoln Street, where they crossed the railroad tracks. This was Church Street, looking down Church Street. Now, coming into view and going over will be the Roseville Heights School. It's coming into view, I think, just right about, there it is right now, going right to the picture. This particular part here was taken off the Pacific Fruit Exchange building, PFE, looking on what we then called Cherry Glen. That was quite a residential section of Roseville at this particular time. This is a view of the yards taken from the Pacific Fruit Express. Now these scenes here, if you look real quick, you look right close to the library, right up here. There's the old bridge and the lake. You just see the library going through there on the right. The business district consisted at that time of Maine and Lincoln and Vernon. This is the Rose Theater on Maine, where I worked as a projectionist. And that's the owner, Mr. Wright, and Rick Sanderson, who's with him. That's the theater from the view, and this is looking down Lincoln Street from the McRae building. J.R. O'Neill's hardware store there on the left, and a good old steam engine crossing the tracks there. The post office in the McRae building was right down on the corner, and that man passing in view there, his name was Eck. He had a plumbing and sheet metal shop in Roseville at the time. You can see the theater there, which was on Main Street, right in the center of the picture. This was Mr. Wright's ice cream store, and that is girl is Lois Smith and Katie Chateau, just going to the right there. This was J.R. O'Neill's hardware store. Mr. O'Neill was selling a gun. The barber shop, I don't remember their names. This is Mr. Thompson and his family. He had a saloon in town. This is Harry Jurgens. He was the jeweler in town at the time. This one I can't recall. That shows the way the SP used to block the roadway and how the people had to wait for trains to get by. Now this is Lincoln Street, and that is the corner of Butler's Meat Market, going down and turning at the Fitment Building, looking towards Gordon's Hall, which I understand now is the Eagles Hall. That's the Fitment Building there, and there's a bicycle shop, a baker shop, Huskisson's drugstore, and Charter's general merchandise store, hardware, groceries, and so forth. And just a short view here of the City Hall at that time with the Busby House on the right. That is the dispatcher's office in the Southern Pacific Yards, and these shots were taken off the top of the PFE building. And that's looking east in the Roseville Yards. This is an aerial view looking down on the tracks in the yards. The grammar schools at that time were Vernon and Main Street. This is the Vernon Street School, wood frame building, and these are the youngsters that were going to school at that time. These shots were taken during recess time. Teacher playing ball. And the group here in this next shot coming up after recess was over, they're getting ready to go back into class. These shots were taken at the Main Street or Roseville Heights School, as we called it at this particular time. I didn't get any pictures of the old school because right there I ran out of film, and that will have to be the end.